What is going on, guys? I got two Daves or Davids I'll be interviewing here on the YouTube channel, and also you can find it on the Primitive Home Fitness podcast. I will link it down below in the description box. We'll be talking to Disciplined Dave, who has a YouTube home fitness channel related primarily with resistance bands. I've seen him kind of come up on my feed a little bit. I also see him in my YouTube analytics, so I know there's a lot of you guys who do watch his channel as well. And if you guys don't know who he is, hopefully those of you guys that find my channel useful might find his stuff useful as well. And then we're going to be talking with David from David's Total Fitness. We'll actually start with him first. He has another Total Gym channel that maybe you guys may or may not know about that. I remember when he first started that channel, I thought it'd be good to kind of highlight another voice doing Total Gym content. He's got kind of a smaller but growing channel, so I wanted to kind of feature him and give him some support as well. And again, just give you guys another kind of voice and have some good discussions about from someone else who has a YouTube channel and also talking about the Total Gym. So we'll talk about some stuff up here in a second. Before we get into this video, guys, please consider liking, sharing, subscribing if you find this at all useful. I'll have a bunch of timestamps down below to help you guys navigate this video. Hopefully you guys enjoy it.
Yeah, really. I mean, for me, like most of my fitness life, I started out, working out at like the big box gyms. I probably didn't really know what I was doing, and just kind of learned as I went along, learned from people I interacted with, learned with some personal coaches. I've always been kind of thinner built, so a goal for me has always been to like try to put on more muscle mass, and it's always kind of been a challenge for me. So at one point I did work out with I hired a trainer and like was working out religiously, lifting heavy weights, eating healthy, protein drinks, all that stuff. And I never really got the results I wanted. I mean, I made some gains, and then one of the trainers said to me something like, "Oh, it's hard for guys who are built like us to put on a lot of muscle mass." So that was kind of like a light bulb moment for me. Just like, oh, I'm working against my own genetics, really, was what it kind of came down to. So I kind of just more focused on just general fitness and general health at that point, and I wasn't like overly focused on like those original goals. And at one point I wanted to work more on like core strength and flexibility. And I started learning about Pilates. So I started doing more Pilates. I worked with like a personal coach for a while, and then I found this local studio that did like small group fitness classes. And the more I did it, the more I liked it. And this particular studio was a little bit more, it wasn't like your traditional Pilates, I guess. It had a lot more it was faster paced, I would say. So you kind of got your cardio in there at the same time. And yeah, just the more I did it, the more I liked it. So then COVID hit. I was at home, working at home, 8 hours a day in front of a computer, not really doing much of anything. And then, I just realized, I'm just kind of like turning into a blob, turning into getting really flabby. So I was like, I need to do something. I really enjoyed Pilates. I thought about getting a reformer, but I didn't know what to buy. They're so expensive and they take up so much space. And so that was kind of my whole fitness journey in a nutshell. And then I just started looking around, and I stumbled upon the Total Gym. And I had seen them before I heard about them. I saw them on, like a late night infomercial or whatever. And I was skeptical. Because when you see, I think that's working against Total Gyms. Like you see this on the nighttime infomercials, and you're like, oh, it's got to be a gimmick. So I was very skeptical about it. But I thought, well, I'm going to buy a used one. So I bought a used XLS as my first one, and it was just like immediate. Like I was addicted to it. So I think I worked out like 60 days straight on it, and I just like overdid it. Really, I started getting shoulder soreness and everything, but so I had to cut back a little bit. But yeah, I was like, it's not the same thing as a reformer, definitely different. But the thing that I like about the Total Gym is that it does have that higher resistance, so I can actually build muscle on it. Like with the reformer, I wasn't really building any muscle, and like within 3 or 4 weeks, I was noticing a difference. My back was stronger, my legs, my glutes. And then just from there, I just kept kind of building and using it more. And I've been able to actually, put on some more mass, in my chest and my arms. I'm noticing it more. So that's kind of how it all started with the Total Gym.
How was that learning curve when you first tried, say, the XLS? Did you feel like did it feel natural to you? Or some people say, well, it's kind of takes a learning curve.
No, I mean, I jumped right on it, and it's because the reformer, it's kind of has a similar concept. I mean, you use cables to pull yourself, and you're moving your own body weight. I mean, it does have springs on it, but it's very similar. So, I mean, a lot of the exercises that I've learned over, like 10 years doing Pilates, were really easy to transition onto a Total Gym. So I know there's people that buy it for like, oh, I want this as a Pilates reformer. It's really different. You can do similar things, but like I said, I mean, like this definitely has more of a challenge to be able to build more muscle than like a traditional reformer.
Mm-hmm. And how did you kind of evolve? Well, I should say, is your fitness any different now, or do you kind of like you just use a Total Gym, or is there any other fitness kind of incorporated in that, in either in your home gym or outside of it? And then I guess maybe go on further, just what your general workout kind of looks like. Maybe it's evolution a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, right now it's primarily just working out in the Total Gym 4 to 5 days a week. Some days, if I'm feeling sore, I just use it for stretching. I mean, it's a great tool just to get a good stretch in. Kind of again going back to that Pilates background that I have. As some days I do just like a full body workout. Other days, usually like if I want to get like some cardio in at the same time, or at least get my heart rate up a little bit more, I'll do like a full body workout. But there's been periods where I've been doing more like split training, like chest and triceps and back and biceps one day, and then legs one day, and then shoulders and core another day. So I've kind of been varying it a little bit.
Mm-hmm. And now you have, again, the gold standard, the Cadillac behind you, the Encompass there behind you. And I know you have a fit model. Is that a holiday edition?
So, it's a Chuck Norris edition.
Oh, it is? Yeah. Okay, I didn't. So how do those kind of two compare? And I guess how do you pros and cons of each?
Yeah, I mean, any Total Gym, as long as you have a Total Gym, you can get results on it, I think. So you don't have to get too hung up on like, which model do I have? I think for most people, I mean, I recommend the Fit. I just think it can grow with you as you kind of advance. It's got, the highest capacity. I like the fact that it's got 12 levels of resistance. It makes it easy to fine tune the exercises. I mean, that was kind of one of the drawbacks with the XLS is you only have the 6 levels. So if you can only go up like a half a level, you can't really do that real easily with the XLS. So that's why I really like the Fit. So I kind of upgraded from the XLS to the Fit, and then I took the big jump and bought an Encompass, which is, it's a little crazy.
You can rub it into me. Don't make me feel bad and tell me how awesome it is. So don't feel free to not hold back on that one, how great it feels. But yeah, do you feel like it's like the big question I get people ask? I mean, I just can't afford it, but some people ask me, well, is it really worth it? Is it, and it looks awesome. I think the only thing I say is like the portability of the Fit is nice because I do stuff inside and outside and I just destroy mine. So I probably would baby that thing a little bit. I know it doesn't need to be babied, but I'd probably like take care of that thing. I wouldn't do all my crazy weird things on that thing. But yeah, just one feature I want to highlight if you don't get to it is the fact, and you can see it in the camera now, is the fact that you can adjust those pulleys on that kind of the wing dip that adjusts. I think that's awesome. The fact that you can then change up that line of action when you're doing presses or pulls. So that alone, I think, is really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think for most people, the Fit is perfect. I think for me, it's like I like using the Total Gym. I use it a lot. This thing will probably last beyond my lifetime. It's so well built. Probably my favorite feature, honestly, is actually just the adjustable glide board. So you can bring it up, to a level position. So that kind of helps a lot with like proper, I guess, form for like spinal elongation. So rather than kind of sitting sideways, like on a total gym. You've got this nice upright posture. Um, but yeah, the lap bars, I need to really explore those some more. You definitely can get like more range of motion. So like if you set it out on the outside of the bar, you can kind of get more range of motion. And then again, if you just adjust it up or down, it's like changes the line of pull and changes what you feel when you're doing the exercise, like whether you're doing a chest press or a shoulder press. Definitely there you can feel the exercise in like different parts of your body. What else do I like about it? I think one of the drawbacks on it though, I love the squat stand because it's really large and you can raise it and lower it. The only drawback to the squat stand is that it's pretty bulky and cumbersome to like take on and off. So like if you're like a person who likes to watch the videos that are fast paced and you got to take off your squat stand real quick, you're gonna have to pause the video because it's going to take a few seconds to get the squat stand off. That's probably like the biggest negative to this machine. But yeah, I love the glide board that you can change position on. Definitely, I want to do more with the lap bars and explore it more. You kind of just like jump on and leave them in one position. But yeah, that's definitely something. And there's really not a lot of information out there about them. I've done searches on YouTube for more information. There's a few videos that Total Gym has put out, but like even like in the manuals and stuff, there's really not much of an explanation and like what you're supposed to do with them and how they operate. And so I think it's a good thing to explore more.
Yeah. How do you feel like when it gets horizontal? One question I always wonder is, I would assume that doing things like a chest press or a row, it would just be easier. But is that not true? I guess even if it's horizontal and it's still at an incline, does it still feel the same, or does it make stuff easier when you're kind of horizontal?
I haven't really noticed a difference.
Oh, okay. So it just feels kind of the same, just you can sit straight now.
One of the weird things though that I noticed is like I had it lifted up kind of high and I was doing like a row, and it was interesting because it was like I was pulling up rather than pulling back. So that was kind of a cool sensation. Something a little different. You felt it differently because you're pulling up rather than just back.
Yeah. What would you say to somebody who's just because you had experience obviously going to the gym and doing Pilates, and I always tell people like you and me, we like using the Total Gym, but it's like if someone prefers something else, certainly go do something else. But what would you tell someone who's kind of like, I don't know, it's on the fence, like is this going to feel the same as what I would get in the gym or with weights? And I guess how would you just address that kind of concern or question?
Yeah. Well, I would say first of all, I mean, try to find somebody who has one so you can use it, see if you even like it before you invest any money in it. But I mean, I think the general thing is that your muscle doesn't know the difference whether you're lifting free weight or using your own body weight. It's like it's all resistance. So I would say you have to be open-minded. I mean, there's people that obviously see it and think, oh, it's a joke, or you're not going to get a good workout out of it. I mean, are you going to become like a bodybuilder using this? Probably not.
Well, we could stay on that a little bit because I always tell people like, yeah, I wouldn't think you're compete for shows, but I do like your point. I think some people say that, and I've probably said that too. But at the same time, when I think we were talking a little bit off the before we start recording, just that when I go back to my dumbbells, even barbells, and I can load it, sometimes that stuff feels easier than I do doing the Total Gym, especially the fact that you got that Encompass can probably hold more weight, but I know I'm not supposed to, but I've loaded on almost 125 pounds on each side, which is don't do that unless you get good wheels. But you can make stuff super hard. So the leg department, not so much, but as far as your upper body and loading what I'm physically capable of doing, even with my free weights, getting in a press or a row, I can load up to a point where I can only get maybe 6 reps, and especially if I go single arm. So, but yeah, I think some people, I don't know if you were necessarily going that route with it, but yeah, just what people think of when they think of, oh, it looks like an easy resistance.
Yeah. And actually, you can become a bodybuilder using that, because now that I think about it, there's this guy that I found I think he's in Italy. He's a natural bodybuilder. He competes, and he's he's in his 50s, so he's like in older age brackets now, which I shouldn't say about being 50 because I'm in my 50s. But he uses the Total Gym for natural bodybuilding. So
Yeah, I could see that. Awesome. Well, we kind of covered a lot of bases there. Anything else that you just have any kind of, I don't know, parting words or anything else you want to say, or even just talking about your channel? I'll certainly plug everything down below, and anything just in general.
like, what do you think is next for Total Gym? Um, like these machines have been around a long time. Like, I mean, they were invented in the 70s, so they've been around. They really haven't changed. I think the current generation of like the GTS and those models are about 10 or 11 years old. The Fit is probably about 9 or 10 years old. So it seems like maybe they're gonna come up with something new or a different model, or like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would think so. And I honestly, and I know we talked a little bit too, like you were talking about like goals of, and I would say me and you might probably have a similar goal in that we're just trying to, share some information about these machines, and it doesn't have to just be these things, but we know there's not a whole lot out there with these things that I think once some of this information gets around, and maybe, I don't know, it's an uphill battle possibly to get over that stigma of the infomercials. I wouldn't be surprised if you see other companies coming out with certain things. Certainly, we saw the Great Flex, and I can only say from what I've heard about the Great Flex. I mean, it's my nephew has his, and it's still going good, and he still uses it every day. Some people say they're built a little differently, so I don't want to. I'm just saying there's already kind of competition, and I'm all for competition. Obviously, certain Total Gym kind of has the niche market on that, but I wouldn't be surprised in the future is you might have other people coming into the space, which would be a good thing for us as consumers. But
Mm-hmm.
I think, yeah, I think Total Gym is for sure. I mean, I don't know, and I think too that, like you addressed, that the thing that you said kind of works against them are those infomercials sometimes. But I also know, and I'm sure you would probably admit too, that I'm sure those infomercials are doing their job and they're pushing the product, and I'm sure they're not hurting for business because they are the longest running infomercial. But so I don't know, and I hate to say this, I know that I don't know, but I would assume that they're being creative, they're doing different things, but I don't know if they need to push the envelope too much if things are going good versus, but I think if stuff gets out there and you see kind of the things you can do with it, I think maybe you might either see other options, or I think they can improve upon their models. So, but I don't know. I guess as good as mine.
Yeah, I mean, I think the infomercial probably hurts them in terms of perception, but obviously from a financial standpoint, they've done really well off of it. So
yeah.
I mean, I was thinking really maybe being able to introduce some sort of technology into it. I mean, it'd be cool if you could somehow track your workouts, like how many reps you're doing or what's the approximate amount of weight that you're moving. And you would think could be maybe something along those lines, but
I would think that's got it. Yeah, I think that's got to be. I thought the same thing. I mean, even for me, just like the idea of having, some sort of rep counter or something, because I don't even pay attention to the reps and sets sometimes. I think that's for me, the beauty of it is it's so fluid and gets you kind of in the zone of doing things. I'm a little different. I never really liked set numbers, but I know some people for sure like having set programs. But you yourself putting stuff together, I know that's a problem. And I think that's a hard problem, I think, for a Total Gym. I assume, or just these companies, even like a Great Flex or something, is you got this machine, how do you organize all this stuff? You got these cards, you got the Total Gym TV. I think they as best they can to educate you in what to do. But from maybe someone who's used to going to the gym with weights, you think, okay, I'm going to do my back, my chest, my upper body, my low, whatever, incline, decline. But with the Total Gym, it's a little bit different. So did you have any issues, or how did you navigate just your own kind of personal programming and what worked for you? And also, what would you even recommend to other people?
Yeah, I mean, when I first started, I looked for videos on YouTube, and even on Total Gym TV. So I mean, it provides you like with a structured workout, and you can just kind of follow along. Like that's kind of like, I mean, when I would go to like a class at a studio, I mean, you're following along a program created by an instructor. So I think for a lot of people, that's really easiest. You don't really have to think about it too much. You just you can roll out of bed in the morning and then jump on it and just follow a video along. Obviously be mindful of what your goals are. What am I trying to do? Am I just trying to get a full body workout? So pick something that kind of goes along with that and will challenge you. You may want to focus more on doing a split series where you focus on upper one day, lower on another day. So, at least kind of have your goals in mind and then pick the workouts that go along and match what you're trying to achieve and, making sure that you're being challenged.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I think I came into it with somewhat of, I don't say it's bodybuilding, but that's the best way I can describe it. I kind of came into it with a kind of a bodybuilding mentality with it, but I could see someone else maybe come into it with a different, like if you're someone who goes to group exercise classes and they do a bunch of stuff, and maybe lower intensity, higher reps, or whatever, you might approach it differently than someone who's coming in with a bodybuilder mindset or something like that.
Yeah.
So thanks again, Dave. I think that was great. I'll link everything and information down below on the channel. You put a lot of great content. It's also just a different voice too. So I think sometimes, the way I might say something might not be received the best way. And certainly I always say this, what I'm doing isn't going to fit everybody's styles and preferences and all sorts of stuff. So you have another voice out there, David, who's doing a lot of stuff with the Total Gym and these types of machines. So grateful for him and doing that. So appreciate the time, David.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hopefully I'll talk to you again soon. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right.
All right. So I'm here with Discipline Dave, and I've seen him. I'm sure you guys have as well, because judging from my YouTube analytics, he's in that top, 5 to 15 people that you can see who are watching your channel, watching other channels. And I thought it made sense to interview him because he talks about home fitness stuff and kind of very simplistic setup. Seems like primarily resistance bands, but Dave can maybe get into that a little more. Just want to pick his brain a little bit. I thought you guys might get information just about him, his channel, as a great resource. You guys can also reach out to him if you don't know who he is. I think you guys would also like his stuff as well. I will link all his information down below in the description box. I'm sure Dave will get into more details. We're just going to kind of just pick his brain a little bit on fitness, home fitness, and just a little bit about him. So we did do very informal stuff in the front end, so I don't know much about Dave at all, other than just maybe a few minutes ago talking to him. So we're going to get into this live with all you guys. Dave, just kind of a little bit about yourself, maybe the channel, and just kind of what you're trying to do. How do you fall into this stuff?
All right. So my name, Discipline Dave, is what my channel is. And for me, my whole channel, the cornerstone, is about putting the technique in the physique. I'm here to make form great again, because I feel like form is such a lost art. And my channel, when you take a look at it, it's mostly home workouts with resistance bands. And the reason why I think resistance bands are important when it comes to fitness is it makes it so that you can respect that form. There's a lot of people out there who are moving weight from point A to point B, but they're not actually using the muscles they need to contract that they're actually trying to develop. And with resistance bands, it makes you be honest about your workout. Am I really lifting this, or am I using momentum? And that's the thing about the channel, is that it's more than just talking about resistance bands. It's knowing that mind-muscle connection when it comes to developing these parts of the body that you're looking to develop. So I have pretty much everything that you need to work on technique and form. And this is for all levels of fitness. I feel like I like the term weight training versus weight lifting, because I'm constantly training my body to get a little bit better, just 1% better, to make sure that I'm really contracting and stretching those muscles that I want to develop. So everything about my channel is home fitness with technique and form.
And were you always kind of doing that? And also with your current training, I shouldn't say always doing that, but I mean, were you always into home fitness stuff, resistance bands? And I guess for you personally, when you do your own kind of workouts, is that kind of what you do, or is this more so something that can help other people do stuff at home?
Well, as far as the journey of fitness, I get this question a lot, like, did you get this size all with resistance bands? What type of things did you do? Well, I feel like I've been on a journey since I've been about 12 years old. And a lot of things I've learned along the way. Also, there's been times where I haven't worked out, and there's been this stretch of time where it's been maybe a month, maybe a couple of years. And so I would say since 12, I've gone through this journey. But now I've been the most consistent that I've ever been in probably a stretch of like 10 years. And I think that everybody does have that journey. And so that's the thing about the channel. We're not judging if like, not saying like, hey, you should have got up at 4 o'clock in the morning and ran like I did, whatever. Like everyone has their journey, but we need to tap into like what's making you not work out. And so when it comes to me, when I say 12, what got me interested in the fitness was a martial arts background. This is before the days of the UFC, and martial arts wasn't cool. It was like where all the kids they all went and played basketball and football and stuff. And I always looked the part, but I was terrible. And I went to a martial arts class, and it was one of those things where the stakes were real because someone's trying to hit you in the face. And versus in like basketball, you're just putting a ball through a hoop. If the game loses, whatever, there's a whole team. But when you lose a fight, there's no one else to blame but you. And so because of that, I took the sport a lot more seriously because I frankly didn't want, to get my butt whooped. And so with that, my approach to working out had been this. I may not know as much as my opponent, but I'm not going to get tired before they do. And that was always my mindset when it came to working out. I had these competitions. There wasn't, this is in the beginning stages of internet, AOL, you've got mail, whatever. It wasn't like a lot of research on your opponent. And so for me, I didn't know. So I would start doing these things to make sure that I didn't get tired first. Also with martial arts, what you learned is, especially in things like jujitsu, is that the technique will always beat the more muscular guy. Well, in most cases. And so I think I combined that approach of having the technique when it came to the martial arts and the drive of the competition that I was facing. So with that, to answer your question, like, were you always like this, whatever? Like, no, I think that a lot of people in shape, they go through these journeys of doing things wrong in the beginning. I was doing what my buddies told me to do. I was hoisting up curls, not actually using my biceps. I was using more shoulder than chest when I was trying to bench press because I was just trying to get the number up there. And so over time, I learned a lot of stuff. And I feel like if I would have known this earlier, my physique would be even better than what it is now. And so I created this channel so people can learn from the mistakes that I made. So you're not doing the wrong thing for years before you actually get it. Because I know there's a lot of people out there doing bicep curls. They can never get over like 35 pounds or 40 pounds. They've reached this plateau and they think that that's it. Or, that's as high as you can go. But they haven't developed their forearms. They haven't developed their traps to get their stance better. They get their abdominals there because that's what's pulling you forward. And so learning that foundation there. So when I go work out, you see me at the gym, when you see me at the gym at different places, I'm always hogging the cable machine. I never bench press. There's everything that I do. Well, I would say 80% of what I do is resistance bands and cables. And that's a fact. And then YouTube is not my full-time job. I actually work for Delta, so I'm constantly flying. So that's another reason why I use resistance bands a lot out of necessity.
Let me hit back on the resistance bands because I know, and I don't want to pigeonhole you, but I think you kind of said that too. Would you say resistance band is kind of like your niche? And is there a reason why you like it? Is it you have a genuine kind of passion for it? Do you feel like it's maybe an avenue to help other people, and that's why you kind of promote it a little more so? But what are you going to say about that? Just curious.
Yeah, so it came out of two things. It's like everything came ahead in like 2020. So for one, I work for a major airline, and with that, I travel all the time. And a lot of times either gyms don't work, or during that time when it was like COVID and stuff like that, they weren't even open. There's times where there's nothing next to me in my layover hotel. And so what happens is that I bring my resistance bands to make sure I get my workout in. that's one of the things I've kind of like always been disciplined about, is just making sure I get my workouts in. You know, I don't even think about it. I just know it has to get done. And so I would always bring it because of that. The other thing is that as when it comes to like technique and form, that's one of the things that really took my fitness to another level when I really started working on technique and form. And then I started to realize that certain exercises that are good for like your traps, like face pulls and stuff like that, they use a lot of the cables. And then when the gyms came back, I don't know how they were in Atlanta, but it was packed and nobody was using the cable machines. And I was kind of like always hogging them there. And so with like the gyms being closed in 2020, me always using cables more so like when it came to weights. And now I'm in this position where now I even use my resistance bands at home because I couldn't go to the gyms. All that kind of came ahead, and my wife, she does a lot of video and production. And she was just saying, you know what, you should probably, try YouTube out. And at the time, I wasn't even on social media at all. But there was something about, if I was going to try this, I wanted to speak on something that I know, and something that will give back to like other people. I didn't want it to be a vanity thing, like, hey, look at me, and you get likes and stuff for pictures, whatever. I wanted for people to take some of this stuff, because one of the hardest things to do, and like I don't even do it, like I don't even try, is like you see somebody with bad form at the gym, and you try to kind of tell them, and you're dealing with a plethora of egos. Either like, oh, I'm supposed to do it this way, or I'm trying to do this. It just can be a weird situation. So with the videos, I felt like, okay, this is something that people can decide and make a decision to learn something better, than to kind of have that. I know how it was for the gym. It's hard to ask somebody. And if you do, you don't want to feel like you don't know what you're doing. And so I felt like the videos were a good way to help people get over that barrier of not really knowing what to do.
I think early on when I first started seeing you kind of pop up in kind of the feed in general, that I kind of assumed, because I wasn't looking at a lot of fitness stuff, even though it was kind of my profession's always been in fitness stuth on YouTube, but I just figured, there's got to be tons of channels like this that do resistance band stuff. I just kind of thought that, and now I don't think that's really the case. I think I could be wrong, but I feel like with resistance bands, there's not really too many channels that are really like yours. I don't know if you looked into that, or was that not true?
Well, I feel like there's like 3 channels that solely kind of like focus on resistance bands that are out there, and they're really good channels. Like there's Undersun Fitness. They're like the orange type of resistance bands. He has some good stuff that's out there. And then I'm butchering. I think it's like AVPV. It's like a husband and wife type of resistance bands. And they kind of use that. But for me, outside of fitness, I like to say that I'm very much into like this creative portion of how to deliver content. Right. Like you said, like for yourself, that you normally don't watch like fitness, a lot of stuff like that on YouTube. Well, before I had the channel, I think I did watch quite a bit of fitness, especially when I was trying to like develop a certain muscle, or try to figure out maybe like a new exercise to stimulate an exercise that seems like it doesn't activate as much anymore. And so I used to use stuff like, I used to watch it for that, but now I don't really watch fitness videos because I don't really want it to kind of like influence where I want to go into the video. And for me, the things that I watch on YouTube is sneakers. Like I'm obsessed with like cool sneakers, and I really like to see how they deliver content in a way of with that type of channel. Sneakers is all about like being first. Who's got the first review? Who's got the leak of the next thing that's coming out? So I feel like their content is daily, and it makes me it makes me hustle a lot more. And I love how they do B-roll and stuff like that. So I'm like, how can I combine what I really love about fitness and also kind of tell this story like when I'm watching sneakers. And that's kind of where it comes from. So I don't think there's another home fitness channel that does it the way that I do it that way. And I think it because of my interests or on these other people who are solely relying on like the creativity for it. I feel like for me, it's more about the information, not so much me. and I feel like that's what I'm trying to do is that every time I make a video, it's like, okay, is this providing value? If I'm watching this and I don't know anything, does this answer the question for me? I'm trying to tap into that 17 to 25-year-old who doesn't really know how to get in shape. Maybe they watch wrestling or something. They would have this idea of like looking like The Rock one day or something like that. And so I'm always trying to figure out like what type of questions like that was me that I asked and try to make videos based off of that. So I think there's other resistance bands channels, but I feel like I'm one of the few ones that are also giving you things psychologically about getting in shape, and then also the workouts. I feel like all the other channels are like mostly just the workouts.
You're doing something that I personally, this is maybe a question that I have, because whenever I used to use, like I got back into resistance bands on and off a little bit, but I tend to like the loop style ones.
Mm-hmm.
The tube style ones I would try. I'm like, for something with me, it's just like the door anchored thing would always kind of just, I would tell people, I would use it, but sometimes it would get me I would get kind of annoyed pulling that door and having always like fighting that pressure. Do you like those kind of workouts? Obviously you do, but is there any tips you'd have for someone like me? Or is it more like, well, you kind of working with what you got, if you got a door, you don't have a lot of space, that's just kind of what happens. But I don't know, just pros and cons of maybe using tube style versus loop style. Maybe that's a simplistic question I'm getting into.
Sure. I think the first thing for anybody listening is, yes, use what you have. Stop waiting for the perfect situation. Use what you have to begin with. Now, with that said, as you progress when it comes to working out or as your knowledge increase, I don't feel that a tube versus a loop, one is better than the other. I believe that they're all tools for certain exercises, just like a Phillips head screwdriver for a flathead. It's just some tool is just going to be the right tool for that exercise. So when it comes to more heavy compound exercises, I do feel that the completely circular loop bands are some of the best when it comes to that, because you can get a real thick density in that latex or rubber. And as it stretches, it can get super tough versus it's a little bit harder to do in the loop bands. So we mentioned earlier about the Clutch Fitness foot plate, which I love, by the way. It's a game changer when it comes to leg workouts. If you're a person out there who, and I've been that person too, where you worked out a lot of resistance bands, but it's hard to get really good resistance in your legs. That Clinch Fitness foot plate is great. And yes, you can make your own, you can do all that on your own, but it has all these little details like risers that come up to make it so that the loop goes completely flat on the bottom of it as you're doing a squat or something like that. So it's great for that. Now, when it comes to the ones with handles, the tube style bands, there's, for one, if you don't own any bands and you're listening to this, I think that's the perfect to start with, because it connects to the brain a lot better of somebody who's lifted weights. And a lot of people out there who are watching this, anybody who's ever tried to get in shape probably picked up a dumbbell. And so there's something that really connects with that handle, and the hand is like, oh, this is familiar, that really connects with the person out there who's a beginner. Now, it's not only for beginners, as I said, it's for the exercise. We mentioned earlier about one of the exercises that was really good for me that's actually been a game changer is face pulls for working out your upper portion of your traps there. And for people listening out there who are out there bench pressing or trying to do pull-ups, that's the foundation of actually making those exercises better. So highly recommend doing that. So that's a little side note. To answer your question, I think if you're serious about getting into shape, if you're saying that I can't go to a gym, you don't like going to a gym, you don't like paying for a membership, invest in both.
If you were starting, I guess if you had as it stands right now, because obviously your thoughts we're going to likely evolve as time goes on, but as it kind of stands right now, if someone were to come to you and saying, okay, I don't really want to go to the gym, but if you tell me I have to go to the gym, I'll listen to that too. What are the best tips for me? I want to start working out at home. I'll buy whatever you think I should buy. Let's say within a budget of less than $500. What would be the ideal kind of setup? Bands, whatever it is, even the brand of bands that you feel like are the best. So what should I get? What's like a general kind of template? Very general. I don't have to go on the whole ins and outs, but general template. What should I do X amount of times per week? And just what are some general suggestions you would give to that person based on kind of where you're at right now from someone who's maybe thinking more so home, but might go to the gym, but it's up to you.
Okay, let's talk about what not to do, because I think what most people do. I did it, so it's not a big deal, but I'll tell you, learn from my mistakes. Don't go on Amazon and put in resistance bands, sort by lowest price and grab that one. Here's why. A lot of people are worried about bands snapping on them, which can be an issue with very cheap bands. But what I found—
Which, by the way, I have to interrupt you because I'll forget about it. I saw a couple of videos. You're literally trying to snap bands. And I'm like, was he trying to snap that band? I'm like, wait a second. I forget what video I saw. There's one brand. But anyways, yeah, you can maybe touch on that, on your band snapping videos. Those are great. But
yeah. I snap bands for you out there. So please watch the videos, like them, okay? There's been sometimes I've really had to let some sores heal from my back there. So I snap them so you don't have to. So yes, you'll see a lot in those snap tests that you're talking about. It really takes a lot of force, even with the cheapest bands for them to snap. What's more so a problem is storage of them. When you don't use them a lot in dry places, that latex, the moisture of it will go away. And then when you come back to it and you haven't done it for a while, that's the most prime where it can snap. So there's some conditioner stuff out there that you can use if you really like a certain brand or you don't want to buy another one to kind of keep that moisture that's there so you don't have to worry about it snapping. I've never used it, but there's some out there. I know Body Elastic has some. So if you're looking for that, that is out there. But what I find actually to be the most problematic is actually not the band snapping. I've tested out so many people send me bands. I've tried out so many different ones. One of the biggest issues that you're going to find with cheap bands is actually the handles. The handles that they use, they really go very cheap on. So they'll have like a thin plastic that is in the handle, and then there'll be a cushion that you hold. And the plastic will be so thin that under large force, it'll crack in the middle. And that can either cut your hand or make it so that it's really, it can be really unusable as you're trying to like curl or something like that. And so that's one thing. The other thing are the carabiner hooks. Sometimes you have a good handle and the resistance bands are okay, but because of your force, the metal is super thin. So the carabiner actually starts to bend and separate, and it'll go flat and it'll slip. And when that thing slips and the metal comes through and that hits you, that's a lot worse than a band snapping. So people underestimate good carabiner hooks and good handles. So that's why you want good quality. It's not so much the band itself, it's the other attachment parts that you're going to use. So what I find out of the best that I've tried when it comes to the tube style ones, because I got to put them in two separate categories. The tube style ones, the ones that I really enjoy are the Total Bands ones. They have really good handles, and they have these type of carabiners that are shaped like a D, and they have a patent on that one. And they're a very thick, good quality metal. Another thing I like about them that you find a lot with cheap bands, which is the nylon that connects the carabiner. When you're using them, a lot of times the nylon can rub into your skin and cause you to bleed. It actually bled in one of my videos. I'm trying to play it off and talk at the end, but I'm like bleeding on my shoulder from the nylon rubbing on there. And they don't have that type of material when it comes to the end of the carabiner hooks on the Total Bands. I also have, if you're watching this, every year I do resistance band awards, because there's pros and cons, I think, to a lot of bands, instead of saying like this one is the best one. But if you're going to buy one, I would go with the Total Bands. But if you check out that video, I go over the pros and cons of all these bands, and I give them awards based on categories. I feel that I don't really have a lot of issues with bands snapping. I guess it gives people a peace of mind who are worried about it, because I get a lot of comments about that. But I've had more accessories with the bands break that were more dangerous than a band snapping.
So then just kind of the follow-up point to that. So once you got the tools there, what do you think, just is there kind of just simplistic program design or stuff you'd not nothing in depth, but just little tips you would give someone once they kind of say got a pair of turtle bands or the clench bands that you kind of have them go from there?
So I put a great video, and maybe we can leave a link with it, is that if you're like new to bands, I kind of explain a lot of that there. I think one of the things that people there, if you want to look at workouts, I got plenty of those on the channel. I have a whole playlist when it comes to, if you're a person who likes to do total bodies a couple days a week, if you like to do split, the bro split there, that's what I like to do. But you can check those out. I have that there available. But some of the things I think that isn't emphasized enough is that a lot of people, they're trying to match the weights that they're doing at the gym with what's like written on the band itself. Well, you got to understand that bands have linear stretch when it comes to resistance. So just because it says like it's 25, it's not going to feel the same way as it does 25 on there. It can be 25 depending on the point of what you're doing the exercise with. If you step out a little bit further, you've got more about 35 pounds of resistance. But I think we're so set in our ways of like sets, reps, and numbers. When it comes to resistance bands, you really need to make sure that, one, am I contracting the muscle that I'm trying to develop? And I'm making sure that I'm giving my best effort to those last 2 to 3 reps you can't do anymore. Like it's impossible. So I think a lot of people stick with a number. They say, okay, I do 25-pound dumbbells curls when I go. They get the 25-pound one. They do the same amount of sets and reps, but it really doesn't work that way. With resistance bands, I find that you're normally going to have to do a little bit higher repetition, and you need to make sure that you're doing everything with really good form. You're probably going to go lighter than you normally do because we have this mentality of bigger weights equal to the bigger muscles, but the better the contraction we get, it's going to really get you that muscle. So that's one of the things, is that don't worry so much about the numbers. You want to really worry about, am I using correct form, and I'm doing this to complete failure?
And this will be the last question, because I have to ask this one, because you probably get this, is that especially if they're saying, and I get this too, if they're watching your channel resistance bands, they're like, well, is it really possible to just get my results from resistance bands? Or they're looking at you like, well, Dave, you've been doing martial arts, you've been maybe you go to the gym once in a while. Can I still, what if I just want to do resistance bands? Can I get results doing that, or do I have to supplement with something else?
Oh, 100%. You definitely can get it done with just resistance bands. Now, there's a couple of things you need to do. One, check with your doctor first. Get your blood work done. I'm using cables and resistance bands all the time. And I know that you're saying before, like, let's say if I was 12 years old, if I just started with resistance bands, would I be looking the way that I do? Would I be able to have this type of physique? Not only do I believe I would have it, it would be even better. And so to answer your question, 100% yes. And if you're not convinced, go ahead and check out the channel. Go ahead and take a look at that. I have testimonials on the community board. You can see those workouts there. You can see the develop as I started the channel. So there's a lot of evidence there, and you absolutely can.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, Dave. And we got a pretty thorough, in-depth stuff. I'm going to make sure this stuff will all be kind of timestamped, but where can people kind of find you, and any other kind of final parting words that you want to get across to everybody?
To check out the videos here, definitely go to the Discipline Dave on YouTube. I'll be there. It's also that on Instagram and on Twitter, also on TikTok on the same name as Discipline Dave. If there's some type of more personal questions that you have to ask me about fitness or anything like that, I respond to my direct messages on Instagram. I'm not the best when it comes to Twitter. I guess I'm trying, but I'm barely trying. If you send me a message, I will respond, but it may be a while. But when it comes to Instagram, it's probably going to be the main means to directly communicate. But if you want to learn more about fitness, if you really get committed to losing weight for real, to really develop muscle, to get that physique you always wanted, just check out the Discipline Dave channel, and we can get fit together.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Discipline Dave. We'll see you. I'll talk to you, say bye you off the recording, but really appreciate your time.
Hey, no problem.
All right.
All
Thanks,
right.
man.
Take care.